Hello, I'm Kimberly Dondo, Digital Content Manager, and welcome to the In Conversation With series, a series where I speak to notable figures in the realm of financial services. Listen as they share their personal journeys, thoughts on the industry, and advice for aspiring advisors. Hello, and welcome to the Money Marketing Podcast. This is a new series that we've started. Hopefully you've been listening to the other episodes I've dropped. I'm joined here by Rory Albon. I hope I said that right.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll let Rory introduce himself and give us a little bit of background into himself. So go ahead, Rory.
Yeah, hi, I'm Rory. I am an assistant financial planner at Lyndhurst Financial Management, based in Hertfordshire, and I have been in I've been in the company since August last year, and at the beginning of this year became an assistant financial planner, being promoted from paraplanner.
Awesome. Okay, so that's really interesting that you went from paraplanner to assistant financial planner. I think a couple months ago, we put out a poll because we wanted to find out what our audience perception on paraplanners was, because there seems to be from a minority probably, that paraplanners aren't, being a paraplanner isn't a career. So what would your take be on that, having started off as a paraplanner?
I think, yeah. It's definitely, you could make it a career, 100%. Mm-hmm. I think you could be as successful as a paraplanner as you could be as a financial planner. Mm-hmm. I think it is the real differentiator between the two is whether you're willing to go out and speak to clients face to face and handle that kind of relationship, or you're perhaps a little bit more comfortable behind the desk with the more technical analysis side. And there's nothing wrong or right about either of them. It's just who you are and what you feel comfortable with. Yeah. But a really great paraplanner is, I think every advisor would know, is worth their weight in gold and are really valuable for firms. So yeah, I disagree with that. I think that, yeah, definitely each of them are have their pros and cons, and you've just got to pick which one's right for you, and there's no right or wrong which one that is.
Yeah, no, that I think I've heard that a lot more, and that's why I said, it's kind of a minority of people that might not consider it to be a real career. But going back to you and how you started, obviously, looking into your past, you didn't start off as working in financial services. You started off at Amazon. So what was that move like for you, from going from that kind of career and then moving over to financial services?
Yeah, it's a big jump, complete game changer of careers and basically everything. I took a bit of a leap of faith in coming over to financial services and joining Lyndhurst. The big catalyst was that, as I imagine it was for a fair few people, was COVID. I was working from home for those years. I just had my second son, who's now just over 1, and it made me think, do I want to continue to commute into London as I was at that time? Right. I was commuting from Hertfordshire into Shoreditch every day. So it's about an hour and a half each way. So take 3 hours a day. Yeah. And I just thought I didn't want to continue to do that, especially with the youngsters. I wouldn't see my boys as often as I do now, in the evenings and in the mornings. So I had to change. Always had a bit of an interest in personal finance. And I thought to myself, if I do a couple of the exams that are needed to become a financial planner, the RO1 to 6 exams with the CII, if I hate them and I don't get on with it at all, hey, my own pension will be a little bit better managed than it otherwise would have been. And I've learned a lesson. And if I do love it, then it's a great new career path that I could follow that would allow me to stay local to where I live and work perhaps more flexible hours and pursue a new career. So I did it, and I took on RO1 and 2. And I think a lot of people have said, if you can get through RO1 and the ethics behind it all, then that's half the battle done, which I did. And so, and just went down that route. So it was was a good change for me. I'm really glad I've made it, but definitely a long way away from working in a warehouse at Amazon and working as a program manager and dealing with projects for them in my previous life.
Yeah, I think that's what I love about speaking to financial planners and advisors, just hearing the different backgrounds and how they got into it. It's probably one of the few professions in which no one's story is the same. It's not like I went to university, I studied this, and now I'm here. There's so many, it seems like there's so many different paths you can take into this. And I think that's why it makes it seem so accessible to pretty much everyone. So for you, what was the process like in taking those exams and studying and kind of juggling that around your regular life?
Yeah, so the studying actually I found pretty useful for me. It came at the right time in my life. In that, as I say, I had two young boys. They would be up early in the morning, late at night, middle of the night.
Yeah.
And if there's one way to guarantee to go to sleep, it's to read a CII textbook for an hour. That always helps you drift back off. And so I did all my reading during those times. So when I started going back into work, I'd read on the train as well, and just use times like that to just work my way through the textbook and take the mock exams and things like that. Just use that time as best I could. As I finished RO1 and 2, I then got the job at Lyndhurst, and they give me some time to work through my exams. And it's you putting those things into providing some context into the examples that you're learning about. That always helps. But at least to start with, it was nice to get RO1, which isn't that technically heavy. It's very ethics driven. It was good to get that under my belt before I joined the industry and things like that. So yeah, just use those little half an hour hours that I have dotted out throughout the day to just do a little bit of reading, and luckily most of it sunk in, and I passed the exam.
Yeah, that sounds great. Do you think there's enough support out there for those people who are kind of doing that preparation and looking, are the textbooks enough? Is there enough resources out there, or is it difficult to find? What's your take?
Yeah, I think it's out there if you're willing to look and go out for it, or pay for it. There are companies like Brand that will do revision packs for you and help you out with all of your exams. I personally used that for RO6 and found it really useful just for their analysis. But you have to pay for that. And there's, if you're joining a new career, you may not have that finances available to you, I guess, or may not want to invest that amount. The other way I found out a lot was just by speaking to advisors, actually. I found that advisors are, not just at Lyndhurst, but other companies as well, are willing to take that time and talk you through joining a new profession, with the exams included in that. And I personally spoke to a few advisors that just sat me down and were able to help me understand a little bit more why things were set out the way they were if I came across any questions. But yeah, the bulk of my research came from reading the revision textbooks that you get with the CII, supplemented a bit by the odd newbie question to some more experienced advisors.
Yeah. I think that is probably the best part, is having that community around you to be helpful when you're kind of jumping into something new. So for you, you said that you moving from paraplanner to financial planner, it was because I'm assuming you wanted to be able to speak to people and get in front of people. So is that something that you think is a very important aspect of being a financial planner?
I think to be a financial planner is a people business ultimately, and it's about building those relationships. That's a key element of the role. And I think if that's perhaps not your bag, that goes back to our earlier conversation, then paraplanner will be great for you. I think the industry can cover both types of people, whether you enjoy speaking to clients and working through problems and things like that, or you don't. For me personally, I wanted to speak to individuals. That's what I enjoyed. In my previous role at Amazon, I'd talk to businesses and account managers and all those kinds of things. And that's a very different relationship, but I enjoyed it, that kind of people side of the business. And I knew I wanted to bring that down to a smaller family or individual scale. And the way I saw it was through financial planning rather than power planning at the time. So that was always my aim, to become a financial planner and come join that area.
That's great. And what challenges have you found kind of moving over to being a financial planner? What are the challenges that you have faced?
So I think there's a few. It's quite a steep learning curve. There's a lot to learn. So I'm like most independent financial advisors. I imagine that Lyndhurst covers all areas. So we do pensions, we do investments, we do protection, mortgages.
That's a lot.
each of those is its own broad range of topics. So there's a lot to learn, and the kind of way I've dealt with it is to learn a little about everything and just know who to go through. Lyndhurst, Touchwood, is a great sized company in that I can jump out and ask the specialists in the relevant areas. And there's some advisors that have been here for decades, and so it's great to be able to rely on their expertise. I think that's the main area that I would, say would benefit anybody joining the industry, is just trying to join a firm with some real experienced financial planners. They've seen most of this stuff all before, 100 times over. We're talking about high inflation at the moment and interest rates rising. Brand new to me in my life, but a lot of the advisors here have seen that before, and they know exactly how clients will react and how to help them, talk them through those kinds of issues, and that's really valuable to me.
That would be extremely valuable. And going back to that kind of piece of inflation and the current climate that we're in, how are you finding your clients kind of reacting to that? Are there panicked clients, or are there just inquisitive clients, or just clients that don't care? Like, what's the reaction?
I think we've got everybody on the spectrum there. We've got some clients that are quite nervous, and rightly so. They're perhaps early in their drawdown of retirement, where it perhaps has the largest impact to them. But it's built into the plan, and it's just about explaining and reiterating that plan to them. We've got other clients at the other end of the scale that are still accumulating wealth. They're in their still early in their working career or midway through their working career, and are contributing to pensions and ISAs and all those other kinds of things. And actually, it's a really great time for them to be buying in that they're buying some of these great companies and the investments that we deal with at a lower price than perhaps they were a few months ago. So they're just acquiring more units. So it's, I think we make it clear to all of our clients, even where we're at the height of the market or the bottom, that long-term growth will always be there. And it's part of our plan that there will be big drops. And we demonstrate to that clients through cash flow forecasting that they're going to have sometimes where there's going to be double-digit with drops in the market. That happens to every company, every investment, everywhere. It's just about preparing your clients and making sure they're aware of that, even in the heights of the market where it looks like everything's going to go up. It's trying to keep their feet on the ground. That's the main element.
No, I think that is probably the most important thing, to be kind of that level-headed voice of reason when someone's kind of going off the scales in whatever way they might be. I guess my question now would be, there's been an argument that financial advisors in the past have kind of just relied on the wealthy baby boomers, the ones with as my colleague Michael stated in a podcast we recently recorded, he said the ones with the succulent DB pensions. But they're obviously, those people won't be around forever. So what, if you do have a strategy, is there a strategy being put in place to kind of look out for a new target market clients, or is that something that you haven't thought of yet, or is that something you're approaching?
So we're approaching it now. It's quite an apt time to be talking about it. We're looking more into coaching. So I think one of the big blockers for younger people to get advice is the cost, or the perceived price cost of getting advice. And I think there's that element of coaching that can come in, which is that general guidance. It's not specific product recommendations or investment recommendations. It's perhaps working hand in hand with their employer's pension that they've set up for them, and auto enrollment and things like that comes along with it. And talking them through the basics of mortgages and protection and those kinds of things, but at a higher level, less of a cost to the company, which means it's less of a cost to the client. And you kind of fall into the ways that they may expect to pay for things at the moment. Things like a monthly subscription is a great way that we can do that, and it's something that Lyndhurst is actively looking into now, which is a great thing to bring in. It's going to bring in a different type of client. You're right. I think most clients are baby boomers that are, very wealthy, either through their property or through their DB pensions or these other things. But we need to. We're really putting an active effort into now looking at that generation down or 2 generations down potentially on how to help those clients, which maybe have a smaller pot, be it pension or investment pot, but the need for financial advice is still there. It just needs to be done in a slightly different way. And I think there's probably a lot of companies out there that are trying to look for that. What is that right way? And for me, I think coaching is the way forward, is that kind of generic advice that talks at a higher level. And as these clients do become more wealthy, which they inevitably will do as they get older, then that's when they come into full advice and want to talk about individual investment options and, the fancy things like VCTs and all those other kind of things that come into play. That will only come into play much later down the line, but it's much better. The more advice we can give earlier, the better, I think. Cases.
I think that is very important, because I think there's probably this perception, or that's the way that I perceive it, is that this generation, like millennials or Gen Z, we have so much information that is readily available to us, whether that is just typing into Google or going on any of your social media, and there's loads of people just recommending things to invest in, and all these other different things you could possibly be buying that could be scams, NFTs and different type of cryptocurrencies. And I think it is that coaching piece that you talked about is very important, because being able to listen to someone with reputable qualifications is a lot better than someone who just is saying, hey, buy this, it's going to go to the moon kind of thing. Because
if only it's that easy.
They make it seem so easy when they're sitting in their Rolls Royce, right, that they've rented for the day. I think that is a very important piece in kind of getting the different generations. But what do you think is needed to make people more aware of financial advisors? Because I've been kind of saying that if it weren't for me being in this position that I'm in now, I probably wouldn't know that financial advice was a thing,
I think you're right. I think it's sometimes seen as something that's reserved for footballers and actors and things like that, and it's not accessible to the everyday person. I think there's a couple of different ways that I've seen work really effectively. Lyndhurst does some of our employees will go out into schools, and so that's particularly young, secondary school children will go and talk about financial planning, partly as a career option that they might want to explore later down the line, but also to explain the basics of what's a pay slip, for example. What's the information that you see on a pay slip? The very 101 sessions of finances, and hopefully that hooks some people into wanting to know more. There's the other element of, I think you quite often see it on, I see it on YouTube videos when they're talking about cryptocurrency, about this not being, advice.
Financial advice.
You should always speak to an independent financial planner. And I think that's something we should perhaps do a better job at, sort of saying like, hi, we are that independent financial planner.
Just commenting underneath.
That's it. Because I think, there's a huge amount of value. It's so easy to be fallen into a brief TikTok video about a particular cryptocurrency that, like you say, is going to go to the moon. But actually advice is much more detailed and much more bespoke and specific than perhaps what a 15-second video can give you. And so that's, I think there's elements that the industry is doing really well on, like I say, going to schools. We're a high street location here, so people walk past our offices.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully they just get a bit of a feel for that, we're available, we're on the high street, you can pop in any time almost. But on the other side, I think we need to as an industry, we need to do a better job of that, pushing be as good as these people that are pushing, a cryptocurrency about long-term investing. I know it's much more boring, but it's just as important, right? If not more, to talk about things like protection and using your auto enrollment from your employer, and these basics we perhaps need to do a better job of as well, and market as well as these other people, as some of the scammers perhaps are.
Yeah, that's one thing scammers are great at, is marketing, unfortunately. But so, as someone who has been on this path for quite a while, what advice would you impart on someone who might be looking into getting into financial advice as a career, or maybe becoming a paraplanner as a career?
Yeah, I think the same advice would apply to both, really. It's go out and speak to your local firms. That's how I really made leaps and bounds into joining the industry. I would just email the CII is a really great, probably the best way. That's how I got my job here at Lyndhurst, is I emailed the CII, who are the Chartered Institute for Insurance, and they put me in touch with Joe, who heads up the office here in Hitchin. And from that conversation, we would keep up to date. We would talk to one another. We would discuss exams and things like that I was going through. And eventually a paraplanner role came up, and she got me, straight in for an interview, and I took it from there. But there's that was by far the most valuable thing. I spoke to other advisors, not just at Lyndhurst, but other companies, and it's great to see the way different advice firms work, their priorities, their clients that they work with, and it's about finding a fit that works for you as well. I think it's a good time to be joining the industry. I think paraplanners are probably the highest demand role in the country at the moment. I know we're looking for some, and you
were talking about onboarding someone today, actually, right?
Yes, Addy's just joined today as a junior paraplanner, so we're on the path. But I think this, as quickly as we can onboard and train them, we need another one to handle the influx of new clients, which is a lovely problem to have, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah,
but it's trying to get paraplanners is tough at the moment, and so it's a great time to join the industry. And I think, as I say, speak to your local firms. If they don't want to speak to you, it's probably not a company that you want to work with anyway. But I think every advisor would be more than happy to spend half an hour to just sit you through and talk about the industry. And for me, joining as a complete newbie, it was great to understand more about the differences about independent versus restricted, and how they differ in the way that they deal with their clients and service their clients. And you almost want to know all of that before you join, because if you're not 100% happy with the proposition that you're putting out in front of clients, you're never going to be able to talk a client through it adequately. And so for me, I really like the way Lyndhurst works with clients and is independent, and it's the kind of thing that you would recommend to your mother or grandmother. That's how I saw it. If you're willing to recommend them, then it's a firm that you want to work for, and that's kind of how I joined here.
Yeah. And kind of finally, what would you say are the benefits of choosing this as a career? How has it kind of benefited you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's ticked the boxes that I was looking for in client facing, working with numbers and finance and learning things, not from just the CPD point of view, but just constantly learning things. So for me, that was great. And then on a personal side, it's great. I think most advisors will allow this, is the flexibility that you can get. So there's working from home, there's flexible hours of part-time is always an option. And for me, and actually this office where I think most of us have children now, or very young children, it's great to be able to, you get that phone call if your child's sick or something like that, and being able to just, okay, right, I'm off, I'm going to go and do that. And so the work-life balance of a financial planner can be great. It's just about striking that balance, which is pretty easy to find in financial services. I'm comparing myself to Amazon, where it was work long hours for a long time.
Yeah.
For me, it's polar opposites, which is a really nice thing to have.
Yeah, that does sound really great. Well, thank you so much, Rory, for sharing your story. I really think, well, I enjoyed that conversation, and I hope that our audience also will love it. So yeah, thank you.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to In Conversation With. We do hope that you enjoyed it. Please do keep up to date with all our new releases via Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your podcasts from. You can also keep up to date with all our new content published on the Money Marketing website, as well as our print edition Money Marketing magazine. So make sure to subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. See you next time.